Hello everyone, recently we spoke about the 5 worst races in-game, and what I want to do in this video is talk about the 5 best. Now this isn't the 5 best campaigns that you can have, it's not specific lords, but rather which races can you play that offer the most fun, at least with the majority of the legendary lords available towards that faction. So this is in terms of replayability, mechanics, and pretty much anything else, and it might help you decide what your next campaign should be. There is quite a lot to discuss, so I do imagine that this is going to be a fairly long video. So we're going to start off with Kislev. There are 4 legendary lords. Most of them, the top 3, are very much the same: Catherine, Konstantin, and Boris Ursus. So they don't really have different campaigns in that regard. You do get that with Mother Ostankia, however, and the reason why I'm putting Kislev in the 5th spot here is because Kislev had such a dramatic turnaround with their free rework that it made them completely different to how they were originally done. Ages ago I would have said that Kislev is just not fun to play, but nowadays Kislev is in such an incredible spot that I really enjoy playing them. They've got a lot of fun stuff about them. The Atamans going in there just basically acting as secondary boosts to your cities, for example. That kind of reminds me of like a historical point of Total War. The build your own spellcaster is also really great. It's something that I would have loved for the Empire due to the Colleges of Magic, but it makes sense to have it for Kislev only just to really boost them up. Then you've got Mother Ostankia, of course, who is generally quite strong, even though she's been nerfed a few times, but when she got released originally, she was incredibly powerful. I think the big point here for Kislev is we finally saw a 6th edition supplement. Remember, they weren't an army back in the day, they were just an allied supplement, realized into a more modern standard and obviously a full roster, which was really exciting. I don't know if Kislev is going to get any more DLC in the future. It kind of feels like maybe no, considering how small Kislev is, but you can easily have fun with them. I know a lot of people wouldn't rate Kislev in too much of a high spot, especially because it is a bit of a chock-a-block. If you're playing as Catherine and Konstantin, you're fighting against practically everyone. It is a bit of a hard campaign in some cases, but it is incredibly lore-friendly. You are the bulwark that protects the old world. And to be fair, it's not any different to recommending Karl Franz for a starting campaign. If anything, I'd say it might be easier to deal with than just Vlad charging throughout straight to Altdorf, you know? Kislev's benefit is not only the fact that you've got a lot of major settlements quite close to each other, but they've all got some very powerful landmarks attached to them. And your roster is pretty beefy, very hybrid focused. It makes me wonder how Kislev might get interpreted in the tabletop. If it's going to be like this, they're going to be terrifying. Those of you who've played against high elves on the tabletop would know that Loth and Seaguard, a hybrid unit, are very, very strong. Now imagine just a whole army of hybrids. Finally having realization of bear cavalry, which by the way, weren't a thing back in the day, they were just a meme. It proves that both Games Workshop and Creative Assembly have been listening to what the fan base wanted, and I'm really happy about this. Shadows of Change did draw in a lot of drama, but it did introduce some stuff that people did want. Hags finally being introduced, the lore of hags also. It's a really good time to play Kislev, I think. My only real issue with Kislev is the lack of unique mechanic for Boris Ursus. He technically has something, obviously it's more baked into the faction gameplay, but the whole supporting of the race thing seems a bit weird, whereas Catherine and Konstantin are supposed to be at odds with each other. I'd totally recommend the Kislev playthrough. They feel really, really good. I know people dunk on them, but there is nothing more satisfying than its Throat Sea Line or even Ice Guards. You can actually stack up buffs on Ice Guards to make them really, really cheap and just have a terrifying doom stack. It is wonderful. Alright, next up we're going for the Tomb Kings. I know some people would say that they should be higher, but right now, as they stand, we know that they're getting new content in Lords of the End Times, so I'm only putting them here because it's like, well, new toys are coming, and I'm really excited about those, but it's still worth playing the Tomb Kings. The Tomb Kings were released as the pinnacle of race DLC for the Total War series. In fact, it set the new standard. Everything after that has been going up and up. This is in terms of race pack quality. And they've recently had a, well, not that recent now, but they had a really good update to bring them more in line with Game 3. Right now, as it stands, none of the Tomb Kings really have their own stylized mechanics, barring some stuff baked into their faction effects and so on. Obviously, Arkan having a little bit more because he does have access to some vampires, and I can imagine that he might change a little bit during Lords of the End Times, but the Tomb Kings are wonderful. This is why the Tomb Kings were one of the launch races for the Old World, for example. It's a new style of play. Yes, you're building up mostly on unit capacity, but I feel like it works incredibly well. Playing as Cetra is really fun, especially since you get so much out of it. If you're using Cetra a lot, you're getting population surplus for newly captured settlements. You've got construction time reduced for all buildings also. It is a really, really fun campaign. The others aren't so bad either, right? Arkan's got quite a lot there with extra armies from the very beginning. I imagine he'll change up a little bit. You've got some really fun attacks there with Khalida because all your archers are so good and extra control, meaning that you can really push quite quickly. I'm dunk on Katep. I'm not going to lie. I do dump on Katep, but he is very powerful and he's got quite a lot going for him, and his characters do level up very, very quickly. You can focus up on quite a lot of spellcasters. The only bad thing I think about the Tomb Kings right now is that they really don't have access to a legendary hero, but they've got quite a lovely roster with so many really cool things. It is probably the best undead faction to play right now, right? Well, the race as a whole. You've got 3 undead factions, soon to be a 4th. And honestly, the interpretation of the Tomb Kings has always been very, very thorough. Creative Assembly sat down and really gave it their all. I can't wait to see what will happen to them in the future. We do know like the big scarab is coming, which is amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did get a character pack at some point, because there is a fair amount of Tomb King stuff missing. Creative Assembly obviously like the Tomb Kings. They are in fact very popular, and I feel like that's a big reason why they got that big update. They wanted to give them a nice little update to bring them online, but also keeping their identity the same. If you haven't played the Tomb Kings yet, I would highly recommend it. They are such a fun faction to play. High Elves next, and this is, expected, right? The High Elves have been getting a lot of attention throughout the period of Warhammer 2, and then recently in Warhammer 3 through Tides of Torment. All the legendary lords have something unique to do, meaning that you have the option to keep coming back and playing a completely different style campaign. Use a lot of Shadow Warriors with Lithanar, have a mixed roster with Lothar, or get a lot of spellcasters really quickly and very, very high level very early into your campaign with Teclis. The High Elves are a vanilla style faction. Yes, I know a lot of people find them quite vanilla in terms of just aesthetic and everything else, but they've got a lot to go through. The High Elves have always been one of those popular races that will get a lot of attention. I doubt they're going to get anything else in the future, but that's because they are basically feature complete. You can have different campaigns with different stylings, with different armies. I'm a big fan of what's happened recently. Aesling's a pretty odd one in that regards because he's a very much one and done campaign, but I feel like it's perfectly fine to have one and done in certain races as long as there are loads of different options. I love playing the High Elves, and I get to do my meme list from the tabletop, which was a lot of Loth and Seaguard. Yes, the staunch line of spears. Let's be honest, right? Hybrid units, like I mentioned before, very, very good, very, very durable. I love what's been done with the High Elves recently. My only complaint with the High Elves is the fact that Korhil isn't a playable legendary lord, which kind of sucks. I get why they did it, because like the pseudo lord with the Make-A-Wish thing, and I do think that Creative Assembly did a very good option with regards to that, right? It was very nice to see like a fan put into the game for a good reason, and he's fine apparently, which is great. And yeah, the High Elves could have been done with another few legendary heroes, would have been lovely. But again, character packs have come in, so maybe we could see that come in and just add a little bit of content. They don't need any more units. They've got practically everything. The Merworm finally in game, and the Loth and Skycutter. Yeah, it's a good time to play the High Elves. If you haven't played them in a while, you definitely should check them out. The Empire is up next, a faction which, let's be honest, they're pretty much the go-to for everyone. Loads of people resonate with Karl Franz, but it's not just Karl Franz. Every lord has something unique about them. Volkmar, I guess, doesn't in that regard, because Volkmar is playing around with a mechanic that's already been available, but it's done to his standard. But you've got so much. If you want a statesman campaign, you've got Karl Franz. If you want heavy magic, you've got Balthazar Gelt. If you want guns, and more guns, and a little bit of magic actually, but mostly guns, you've got Elspeth. There's so much cool stuff about the Empire, and it's hopefully not going to be too long until we see more for them. People have been wanting Boris Todbringer for quite some time now. There is a list attached to him, obviously, from 6th edition, but there's loads of still possible characters for legendary heroes and legendary lords. Hell, even some possible units too. I'd love to see the remaining Steam Tank variants, for example. I do find it interesting that Creative Assembly pushed the Empire as a recommended faction. I wouldn't recommend it as like a new player faction, because it can get a little bit like busy, especially since you've got so much pushing into you, but they're definitely a faction that people should gravitate towards if they want a little bit of everything. So the Empire themselves aren't like, oh, specialist at this, specialist at that, barring certain factions. They're a bit of everything. And I think that's what makes them so likable by people. Naturally, it's also the case that people will gravitate towards a faction that reminds them of them, which is why a lot of people play humans in general. This isn't just here, it's like stats that we know from like World of Warcraft and other different video games. Plus, the Empire has that one iconic phrase, faith, steel, and gunpowder. It's fantastic that we get so much from it. I can have a lot of fun with the Empire. I'm hoping in the future Creative Assembly will decide to bring in the other electors. I would absolutely love Marius Lightdorf. He is one of the coolest characters. I absolutely adore his model. I don't think we're done seeing stuff with the Empire, and if Creative Assembly are going to keep to just releasing stuff in the future, I could imagine we could see a lot more Empire stuff to come. Hopefully it won't take too long. I'd love to see Kurt Helborg and Ludwig Schwarzhelm. Honestly, I could be here listing loads of Empire stuff for hours and hours. This is how much I enjoy the Empire, and it's why, even on the tabletop, I decided, screw it, I'm going to paint the hardest scheme possible because I want my Imperials to look good. I'm painting an Avalan force, and again, that's why Marius would be awesome. There's a few things that could be done to make the Empire a little bit better, and I've talked about it, you know, chapter houses littered around the Empire and stuff, but as it stands, still very, very enjoyable. Alright, before we continue, if you like tabletop stuff, I do have a tabletop channel, Grudgehammer, which has been posting 2 times a week. I've got 2 videos for this week, and I'll be going over kit bashes. I've got some really fun ones lined up, and how to paint in a battle-ready standard. So this is for beginners who want to get in and make their troops look a little bit grimdark. You can find it linked in the description below. I've got really fun ideas coming out, and there's going to be more videos on a more consistent basis really soon too. And I will say it's done wonders for me because it's actually given me a bunch of ideas to then translate into videos for the Great Book of Grudges. So yeah, I think that's what I needed. I just needed something to keep me busy. We're coming in with an honorable mention purely because, look, I've glazed this faction so many times. The Chaos Dwarfs are a fantastic interpretation of a faction which got really forgotten about by Games Workshop, let's be honest there. They had an army book way back in the day, then they had a small army when it came to Forge World, and even then it was Forge World Resin, so it didn't really get a lot of attention because people couldn't really buy into them. The Chaos Dwarfs got brought into Total War Warhammer with one of the most structured campaigns we've ever seen. Mechanics that work with other mechanics that work with other mechanics. There is so much to it. While I'll always say that the Tomb Kings were a game changer in terms of race design, as they elevated Warhammer from basically just a historical game in a sense, barring obviously the single entities, but I mean in generic game style, to something completely different, getting its own method. The Chaos Dwarfs came in and radically changed that up. It's a style that, let's be honest, we want future races to be. There's high expectations for Nagash. There's high expectations for Total War 40k, because when we're looking at it that way, everything needs to go back not just to the mentality of the Tomb Kings, but the design of what happened with the Chaos Dwarfs. We want more structured campaigns and more stylized stuff. Sure, the Chaos Dwarfs don't have unique mechanics in between the Legendary Lords, but I would argue that they don't need it because there is so much to do with the race in general, and I feel like that is super important. I go back to the Chaos Dwarfs every so often, and it gives me the will to paint up the old school Forge World stuff, which, if you know about them, they did come with quite a lot of flaws. So the fact that this incentivizes me to paint the Forge World stuff is a testament to how good this DLC is. I absolutely adore playing Chaos Dwarfs. The gun lines are fantastic. The artillery is great. Sure, you get a lot of friendly fire, but I mean, that's just Total War in general, and it's kind of representative of that on the tabletop. Believe me, in most cases, you'd hit your own stuff or misfire and blow up. Chaos Dwarf campaign is wonderful. If you haven't played it, you definitely should. Alright, and now for the last spot, which, I mean, I think a lot of people are expecting Skaven. There are loads of different Skaven factions. And sure, some of them still don't have anything unique. Skrulk, please, Plagues, CA, and obviously something for Queek. But the Skaven are so incredibly varied. They have an incredibly large roster. This is also thanks to the fact that they got so much attention in Warhammer 2. So far, nothing really for Warhammer 3, but I mean, we're kind of expecting some big stuff, you know? But you can play with major clans, well, most of the major clans, and have totally unique campaigns. With Clan Molder, you've got the monster creation stuff, right? Like you can tool certain monsters to be certain things, modify them, sometimes make them unstable where they'll have problems. With Clan Eshin, you can become the Master Assassin, delete factions from the game. Clan Scryer, you've got so many different guns, you can do so many different things. I'll drop a nuke on the enemy. I really enjoy the Skaven, and I was really excited when they got announced for Warhammer 2 because I played Skaven near enough religiously on the tabletop back in the day. It just feels like any time that they get a patch or a DLC focused on them, they get better and better and better. I honestly can't wait for Thankwall. Hopefully he comes in during the Lords of the End Times, which, I mean, is a fair assumption considering he has such a big part to play in the End Times. But, yeah, honestly, like, even without knowing what may come, given what they've done with the Skaven, it's a fair assumption it's going to be a fantastic addition, right? I don't think there's much more after like, the end time stuff that could be done unless like Creative Assembly want to do a character pack focused around Clan Pestilence, which would be great. There is a lot of stuff missing for Clan Pestilence, actually. But you can do so much with the Skaven. I'm having an itch to play Deathmaster Snickitch recently, and I think that's going to be my next campaign. Maybe even my next stream will focus around the Deathmaster, because he's so incredibly fun, and I just cannot fault the Skaven. I really cannot fault them in any way barring the Skrulk and Queek issue. But that's my list, and yeah, I know some people would say otherwise, so what would be on your top 5? The idea here is just to help new players, because there are loads and loads of new players jumping in recently, and they're looking for stuff to play. It can get a little daunting, I get it, but you know, there's so many races, there's so many factions, there's what, 100 plus legendary lords to play with, and that's the great thing about Total War Warhammer. There is so much, and there could still be a lot more. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you all again very, very soon. And yeah, more to come here and on Grudgehammer. Bye.